Buongiorno a tutti. Più che raccontarvi cosa fa il nostro gruppo, cercherò di chiedere delle cose che il nostro gruppo vorrebbe poter ottenere.
Let us speak about what our group would like to do, also to give you an alternative outlook on what and how biomethane can be used. Well, we found many interesting and useful things here in line with what we want to do. But the beetroot grower showed biomethane, and it showed filling stations. It can be used for transportation. Think about the many opportunities, boats, trains, etc. Well, the industrial sector was only mentioned this morning. But when you were talking about visions for 2030 and 40, but on our side, we would like to show you how the industrial sector is interested today, but also in the near future, without waiting for 2040, the fact that it is interested in being sustainable from the environmental standpoint. So, I will skip a few slides. This is interesting data, not advertising. We produce 1.3 million tons a year of products in our 25 factories. There have been some acquisitions. Let's say that every person eats a kilogram of our products. We're talking about 1.3 billion users. Sometimes we don't think of our scale and of our responsibilities. 3.3 billion toys within every Kinder egg. There are even 3.3 billion kids every year, so there must be some adults who buy this chocolate. Anyway, one delivery every 4 seconds. So we're interested in transportation, as you can imagine, but I will show you now how you can be interested in biomethane, making other types of considerations. This is where we are all over the world. So in this chart, we speak about sustainability. We want to grow, of course, as all the others, as any other. But in growing, of course, our exposure increases in terms of our reputation and sustainability. But there is a cross-sectional aspect. I deal with industrial and operational sustainability in factories and logistics. So I am responsible for these 3 yellow bits in this chain. So why does responsibility increase? Because we need to have a reputation. And you've seen how many consumers we provide our goods to all over the world, and consumers are very careful about what companies do in terms of their responsibilities. So we need to do these things because our customers want us to be sustainable. So they want to know how we make our products, and that is why we started dealing with sustainability. And here there are many other players, but just as they do, we deal with these 4 sectors: climate change, energy efficiency, water, and the circular economy, so water usage. Today we're going to focus on climate change, zero CO2 emissions, etc. So why is Ferrero interested in biomethane? Well, I will not spend too much time about what is Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. If you want to know, Scope 1 is emissions deriving from directly burning fuels within our plant, let's say gas. Scope 2 is what is related to using electricity, the electricity we buy and that somebody else used to produce energy, and Scope 3 is what lies around or beyond our boundaries, but that still fall within our responsibilities. So the production cycle for our raw materials, packaging or transportation to get this stuff to our homes. So let us focus on Scope 1, so our factories and plants. Today we have a system that we developed over time, strongly based on cogeneration. So we are convinced that producing at the same time electric energy and thermal energy is much better than producing this separately or buying it. Cogeneration, in only 2 cases, are based on sustainable bioliquids in the south of Italy, 0 emissions, but unfortunately, from the standpoint of CO2 emissions, the red triangles are those where we do cogeneration with gas. We are putting photovoltaic everywhere, but you realize that photovoltaic, solar power, still represents a relatively small amount compared with what we need in our plants. So if we wanted, and we do, we haven't communicated this yet because we don't know what our pathway, if our pathway is financially sustainable. So we are working on it to understand if we can do it. If we want to get to 0 emissions by 2040, so it's not that far away, but not even too close. The questions to answer are what technologies to adopt, what strategies, and what resources and what costs this is going to entail. So basically, we considered some 20, but the main 4 are a biofuel. That is why we are so interested in talking about biomethane. Electrification, which is a theme that, as you will see, also European directives and the considerations coming from Europe underline in terms of the best way to improve our carbon footprint, even though we don't think that this is actually the case. Photovoltaic energy generation, or if we had some small wind blades or something to produce energy for ourselves, and carbon capture. And I listened with great attention and interest to what was said today and yesterday, the fact that agriculture per se is capable of capturing CO2. The problem is that if we produce it to generate energy in our plants, we also want to be able to capture it ourselves, besides, of course, entrusting ourselves to the planet for its ability to capture CO2 in agriculture. So you will see that with reference to these 4 strands, there are some buts. So the first, and this is what we are talking about today, and we'll not focus on the other 3, is the limited availability of these biofuels, particularly biomethane. You see that in the end, the conclusion is we are here that we want to buy it, we need it, we want to take huge amounts of it, but it's not available. So the guarantees of origin, anyway. I want to ask you a question right away. A theme that emerged, it's not a very easy question, but still, a theme that has emerged is that, yes, well, if we were recognized a higher price because this is a molecule of biological, not fossil origin, well, there would also be a greater supply of biomethane. Yes, but I'm saying the reverse in a sense. Yeah, I have to say the opposite in the sense that today a producer of biomethane gets 60 cents of incentive plus 20, but we pay 20. So if we wanted to get this, we would have to pay 80 for it if we were to use it for transportation. So we want to support the environment, but we don't want to go bust. So we want to do something like an electric power from biological sources. Yes, well, an additional cost from your standpoint may be something sensible. Yes, I'm here to propose and ask for this. We would pay those who produce biomethane also for industrial use, not just transportation, provided that it's not at a price that is too high, like, expensive wine. Just as in the case of photovoltaic, generation, wind power, you guarantee the origin to remunerate the producer who put in the grid energy from renewable energy sources. So we buy the same electron with the guarantees of origin. We would like to do the same with biomethane. And I will also skip the other aspects, but I will get to the point. We would also like to do the same for PPA. I don't know if you also are responsible for... Okay, these are purchase agreements. These are long-term purchase agreements for promoting the development of additional sustainable energy. So a company tells you, we will have a 10 years contract, I will buy energy for 10 years at a given price, and you go to the bank and you get the money because you have a contract with a solid, with a company that guarantees this purchase. And so new plants will be built for generating energy from sustainable energy sources. But this is something which is more virtuous, so PPAs are good. Why don't we do GPAs, long-term contracts focusing on biomethane? We could do that. And we commit ourselves to buying for 10 years, 15 years a biomethane instead of our gas. Anyway, I'll move on because you will see what the impact is.
Qui vi faccio vedere i 22 impianti, lasciamo pur perdere. Questo è quello che è stato detto più volte. Se usassimo bio.
So if we used biogas instead of gas, we would reduce CO2 emissions by 90% or more. And this is just to say the European Union considers electrification the main driver to fight against emissions. And yes, we do want to change our gas fuel boilers into electric ones. And the same goes for our cooking stoves, etc. But if we could keep our gas stove, cogeneration, feeding it with biogas, biomethane, we would be very, very happy because, why am I saying biomethane and not biogas? Well, because of the size, bringing it to our homes, you would take all those lorries that were, traveling one after the other like a train. And biomethane, we could get it from the grid, paying that guarantee of origin I was referring to earlier. Here we have a short bit on the fact that, in addition, the food industry, compared with others, also proposes an opportunity in terms of generating biomethane from our waste byproducts, so biogas and biomethane. And there are already some. There is one in the UK, one in Ireland. This circular economy is not a prospect for the future. It's something that exists here and now. Everything that comes from this plant that just stated CO2 is using for Coke, for producing Coca-Cola. Biogas is transformed into biomethane. It's used in trucks. So everything that was seen as a scenario already exists in many realities. This is a slightly simpler chart to look at, diagram to look at. We can say that we are in the agroindustrial sector and also in the sludge sector. We produce sludges and we also have byproducts from our productions. So we can contribute. We don't have the need nor the ambition of creating by themselves the biogas and biomethane plants, but we can also give our contribution to some existing plants, provided they're not too far away from our factories. And this biogas, we can make sure that it's going to be used for trucks, for which there are current incentives. But we also say, give some back to us at a fair price. I will skip all these slides because you are much more knowledgeable than me. You can tell that Germany is a giant in the field of biogas. Italy ranks a second, but if we look at biomethane, Italy has a very small scale. So we are waiting to be able to get biomethane for a grid. There are no such things now at the moment in Italy. Incentive mechanisms, I will go very quickly. I spoke about them. There is also the guarantee of origin mechanism, but it doesn't work. It's not active. I don't know, but today we buy guarantees of origin for biomethane generating in the UK. We buy them to bring these emissions to Germany to for a trade-off with our emissions in Germany, and of course there is no such mechanism in Italy. So what about our requests? I tried to write them in very simple words for the man on the street, but it's basically what I said so far. It would be very effective, useful to have for guarantees of origin an operating register also connected to that of the other countries, a price which is similar to that of renewable energy sources that would reward the investment of those who generated biomethane, but that can also be borne by those who use this fuel at the industrial level. I just wanted to get back for a moment. I want to get back to a slide. Okay, this one. Look here, 110 million cubic meters of gas just for the cogeneration in the Alba plant. We've got 25 plants, and the one in Alba and the one in Germany are the biggest, but just in Alba we use 110 cubic meters of gas per year. So we spend more or less 30 million. Why couldn't we spend 35, 36? I'm talking about million, not, not pennies. So the economic effort to be sustainable, we want to put it there, but we cannot, spend 120 to replace the incentives. So when I was talking about affordability, the price has to be affordable for us, as well as, rewarding producers. Incentives, I spoke about it. This is another aspect I mentioned. The GPA, gas purchase agreement, similar to the PPAs, and the circular economy, this thing we are saying. So we want to make available to expert producers. This is not our core business. We are not going to create a biogas and biomethane plant. If you know how to make it, and if you can explain to us if we'd better process our products or making them complementary to beetroots or whatever, we could give our waste to those who produce biomethane, and we propose to reuse it in a circular mode. I just wanted to tell you that if we were to use all our waste products, we would cover 10% of our needs. In Alba, we would cover 10 million cubic meters, which is a lot, but I need 110. Yes, a question. You spoke about industrial use. You basically mean cogeneration in your case? Yes. Or do you also think of bio-based products, so green chemistry aspects? No, not at the moment, and not as far as these figures are concerned, because we're talking about energy production. So we make energy at home, and we would like to do that with a good type of gas. So you have a great demand in terms of thermal energy. Well, the thermal part, and I heard many speak about it in terms of a problem. What do I do with the thermal energy we have? Well, we give it in Alba to the company that provides district heating to the city of Alba. Yesterday, there were some young entrepreneurs who were saying that in connection with the village, all the surplus in terms of thermal energy produced by these huge cogeneration plant that produces electric power, because we don't need thermal power, we give it away for district heating. This is something that can be done also elsewhere. What we would like to do ourselves is to leave this cogeneration as it is, because it is really great in terms of effectiveness, but use as fuel biogas or biomethane instead of fossil fuel, of gas or fossil fuel or fossil origin.